morning, Leader.
Good morning and welcome to the first executive meeting of the new Reform Run Council. The very first thing I'm going to do is change the agenda items around a little bit. So my apologies, but we are now going to move the agenda item of Thedlethorpe Geological Disposal Facility to the end, and we'll start with the IT contract followed by outsourced bodies. It just makes it a little bit more straightforward for us. So is everybody with the executive happy with that alteration? Thank you. Right, I do need to read something about the system, don't I?
That's just your script.
Right.
Streamed via YouTube.
Right, yes, thank you. Okay, this meeting is streamed via YouTube. When we are ready to talk, just press the button. There's only two can talk at a time, so don't all talk at once. It's got a system on it that if you all talk too much, the hearing gets affected, so please bear that in mind. And it is live, being screened on YouTube now.
First item is apologies to you.
Right, the first item of the day is apologies. Rachel. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from Councillor Cheen, Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport.
Yes, thank you. He does send his apologies via me. It is very important that he's not here today, but I won't go into details.
Next item, declaration of interest.
The next item then is declaration of interest for members. That's on top of anything that you have already declared, so it's anything specific. Take that as nothing extra. Jolly good. Item 3 on the agenda then is announcements by the leader. I don't have anything. Any executive councillors, do you have anything to say? Nope. And executive directors?
Nothing for me, thank you very much, Leader.
We're flying through this, aren't we? So item 4 then is minutes of the previous meeting held on the 4th of March 2025. And like other minutes that we've approved recently, it doesn't matter that we weren't there. It isn't for accuracy. It is just that it is a copy of the minutes. So if everybody's happy to approve those minutes, then please indicate by raising your hand. Do I have to go?
No, it's accepted.
Brilliant. Okay. So, the first crunchy item on the agenda is the Strategic Technology Partnership Contract Award. I'm going to introduce Tom Baker. Where is he? Oh, there you go. Who's going to run through some comments and details about the contract, and then I'll allow Councillor Phillips to stand up and give his feedback from the OSMB, which is the Oversight Scrutiny Management Board. So over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Leader. For those that don't know me, my name is Tom Baker. I'm Chief Information Officer here at the Council. I've been in post for 12 months. Those 12 months have been focused on the provision of a new contract, which we're calling Strategic Technology Partnership. It's to provide the underlying core IT services that are absolutely critical to this organisation. Every facet of our services is reliant on some form of technology, the laptops that we use, the systems that are used to execute our processes that support every organisation of the Council. So this is a hugely important contract and one that is critical to base IT provision, but also in terms of providing access to modern digital skills and capability that can be harnessed to facilitate a more effective way of service delivery, of driving efficiencies and making sure that we're delivering value for money. So there's a number of recommendations within the paper, and the paper recommends that the executive delegates to the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation with the leader, authority to take all decisions necessary to progress this new contract, to endorse the approach set out in the body of the report, to endorse a new target operating model within the Council's IT function, to facilitate driving maximum returns from this new contract. There are a number of options that have been considered within the paper. One of those is insourcing the service, which is currently provided by Serco. This is not recommended due to a lack of skills within the Council's IT function, but also more widely within Lincolnshire. The level of maturity and capability that we've got to deliver the services required. This approach would also mitigate any economies of scale that can be driven through the proposed mechanism that we've got here. And also, we don't operate currently the supply chain to facilitate the successful execution of the services needed by the organisation. Secondary option that has been considered is an amendment to the existing agreement. This is not recommended. Again, we have exhausted all extensions with the current contract with Serco, and it cannot be further extended. In the context of some background, the Council's IT services have been delivered through an outsource agreement, latterly with Serco since 2015, and before that with an organisation called Michel. In advance of the contract ending with Serco in 2024, the Council did embark on a multi-sourcing strategy involving the insourcing of some services. This was aborted in late 2022 for the reasons that I've described, and we've been operating within a transitionary period since that point. Services currently provided by the Serco contract include things like end-user support, so the management of laptops, of which we have somewhere in the region of 5,500, tablets, smartphones. It provides access to core business systems, everything from Business World to the Microsoft Office platform. It facilitates collaboration through software like Teams and SharePoint. It provides service desk facilities, tech bar, and support for members. Critical services to support the smooth running of the organisation. It also provides areas like IT support, and this covers things like Wi-Fi management, network connectivity, the secure storage of files and documents. It facilitates the monitoring and maintaining of IT and cyber infrastructure. And there's also provision for project and technical delivery to support the adoption of new systems. All of these services need to continue into the new agreement, although clearly within the new agreement we're looking for improvements and efficiencies to drive new ways of working. The current contract is reflective very much of a basic IT service, a service that was commissioned now over 10 years ago, and the world has moved on significantly from this point. So we've looked to address challenges with respect to this contract through the new one, and we are looking at the exploitation of capabilities that are now commonplace with many organisations. So the new IT leadership team has come into place with myself in 2024, and we've looked to stabilise current provision and to progress this new contract. Key within the new contract are services and capabilities that will facilitate, as I say, new ways of working and efficiencies across the organisation to allow us to deliver services in a more expedient way, to do that potentially through automation, to reduce cost and to drive efficiencies. There's also provision within the new contract to move to a more data-centric organisation. There are capabilities defined therein to allow us to aggregate data from across the organisation, to manage that data appropriately, safely and securely, and to protect commercial information and other information that might relate to individuals or service areas, and to allow us to exploit that information to better understand and to predict and forecast demand, and to more intelligently commission services into the future. So some really significant new capabilities that's going to be brought alongside that core IT provision. Alongside what we're doing with the new partner, we're looking to restructure the council's IT team, and we're going to build a new streamlined service around 4 key areas. Service management, to make sure that we've got absolute focus on working with the new partner to make sure they're delivering to the terms within the contracts, that we're focused on key performance indicators and driving the best returns for the organisation. We'll be focused on strategy, architecture and products. This will be the area that is looking to build and to exploit those new capabilities and to work alongside all of the different service areas within the authority to look at how we operate going further forwards. Another key pillar to the new structure will be cyber security. This is hugely important for very obvious reasons and will be a key focus of the new team. And we'll also make sure that we've got the right governance in place to support project and other activities. The new contracts will provide access to 5 new product teams, which will be focused on the technologies that I've articulated, and we will look to work across the organisation to understand where we've got most opportunities to move and to leverage AI, automation, and to better use data. In the context of the procurement and the strategy that's been used to bring us to this point, back in April 2024, the executive approved a new IT service model paper, and the objectives were, as I've outlined, to improve the use of IT, to create a strategic partnership, to better increase the council's security posture, and to improve IT operations, and to look across the organisation. And I feel that the process that we've undertaken has driven and met those criteria. What we've got in front of us is a contract initially for a 7-year term with the option to extend by 2 years and a further 2 years on from that point. We've looked to address some of the shortcomings within the existing contract through placing at the heart of the design of the contract a number of key principles. The first one of those is an evergreen estate, so we'll look to manage obsolescence. Through the new contract, we'll make sure that all council equipment is supported, that it's kept up to date, that it's in receipt of security patches and other important elements. We've looked to include digital transformation capabilities with a focus on AI and automation. We've also looked to leverage the contract in the context of social value and how we can work with the new partner to both upskill members of the IT department, but more broadly the entire organisation, and even to think about that in the context of digital inclusion initiatives across Lincolnshire. All resources from Serco will be subject to 2P, where they've been working on LCC business, and they will migrate to the new supplier. That new supplier has a strong and impressive track record with the integration of staff through 2P mechanisms, and indeed a large portion of their business has grown as a direct result of 2P influx. So, all in all, a significant opportunity for the organisation, and one that will drive a lower cost to the organisation and make significant savings within the core capability, and also look to leverage capabilities to drive further savings within the wider set of services. So, Leader, on that, I'd look to recommend the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and I'd like to give you my thanks and congratulations for a massive piece of work. However the outcome today, I'm sure you'll sit back and have a little rest from it all. So I now call upon Councillor Roberts to give us his feedback from the OSMB.
Thank you, Leader, members of the Executive and colleagues. Last week, the Board reviewed the proposals in relation to the award of the Strategic Technology Partner contract. Members unanimously endorsed the recommendations in the report before you and welcome the ambition to modernise the Council's digital infrastructure. In the course of the debate, members explored several areas requiring further clarification. Capital costs and funding. There was particular interest on how the proposed 10.6 million capital investment will be financed. Members sought clarity on whether this would involve prudential borrowing or draw on the council's internal resources, especially in light of the stated policy to minimise borrowing for service delivery. Officers suggested that while the final funding decision will be made following the year-end financial process, the current intention was to avoid external borrowing, with a preference for internal financing mechanisms such as capital receipts or revenue reserves. Cybersecurity. Given the increasing scale and complexity of cyber threats, members welcome the Council's continued investment in robust digital safeguards. Officers highlighted the option of a multi-layered assurance model, including compliance with recognised frameworks such as NIST and the government's Cyber Assurance Framework. Members were particularly reassured by the presence of an independent 24/7 security operations centre, which provides a real-time monitoring and rapid threat response capabilities. Local employment and skills development. The importance of ensuring local benefits from the contract was strongly emphasised. Members encouraged the Council to leverage this opportunity to support job creation and skills development within Lincolnshire. Officers responded by outlining a number of initiatives already in place, including a digital training programme, partnerships with local universities, and professional development routes for existing staff. The contract digital inclusion agenda was also noted as a key mechanism to extend these benefits beyond the Council's internal workforce. Contract resilience and value for money. Finally, members examined the Council's ability to ensure long-term value for money and safeguard service continuity in the event of a contract failure. Officers provided assurance that rigorous measures had been embedded into the contract structure. These included comprehensive financial due diligence, architectural decisions to reduce resilience on a single provider, and clear contractual provisions to enable the transfer of key services and assets back to the Council if necessary. The inclusion of robust exit and termination clauses was welcomed as a critical component of risk mitigation. This summarises the key points from our debate last week that took place in the public domain. I am happy to take questions in relation to this part of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. And could you pass on my thanks to all the members of the OSMB for their diligent work. I'm just about to open it up to the executive to discuss, but I'm going to raise this one point. There are sensitive issues that I hope we don't have to stray in today, because we'd have to kick all our guests out. If there's anything that you want to talk about outside that's within that framework, then please let us know in advance. And if we can do it without closing the meeting, I would much rather that. So on that point, I'd like to open it up to the executive for any comments or questions to Councillor Roberts. Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if it's Councillor Roberts or from behind me, sorry. Thank you for the report and thank you for all the detail. I know you mentioned about get-out clauses. Obviously, in light of local government reorganisation, we know that we might have to use a get-out clause already in possibly 4 years. Are we well covered that that is written in and we're happy with what that could mean for us?
I think we went into it quite a lot of detail. Tom, if you want to just to reiterate what we spoke about.
Yeah, I'm going to ask my colleague from the commercial function to briefly take this question, if that's okay. Ben Crow.
Oh, thank you. Yes, the contract provides robust exit management and termination provisions for cause and also for convenience as well. So yes, there are plenty of provisions in the contract should we need to use them. And that's been sort of examined with Councillor Kelly as well. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Just to add to that, to say that also in terms of local government reorganisation, should a better option or an option to explore for other councils to actually join this contract, there is also the provision for that as well.
Thank you for that. Any further questions on that. As far as I was concerned, that was my one concern about the contract and the way going forward. But I've been reassured by many people that it is nothing to worry about. Let's put it that way. So if there are no further questions on that, can I ask the executive to go to page 50 on their packs or online? And if they're all happy, to signal their agreement to the proposals and recommendations. So all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Great stuff. The next item then on the agenda is the appointment to outside bodies, and this was going on till about 5 minutes before I walked into the room. So I'll hand over to Nigel West to tell me what the latest is.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, before you is a report with nominations for members of outside bodies, nominations from the Executive on Appendix A, Leader of the Council Appendix B, and Executive Councillors Appendix C. Since publication of the papers, there have been a number of amendments. If I can just highlight those. Alternative LCC Director on Investors in Lincoln, that should be Mick King, Head of Economic Infrastructure. The two nominations for the Willoughby Memorial Trust, the nominations should be Councillor MJ Hill, OBE, and Councillor Mrs S Woolley for the Willoughby Memorial Trust. Skegness Day Centre, the nomination is Councillor Adrian Findlay. North West Anglia NHS Foundation Trust, partner governor is Councillor Richard Cleaver. And final amendment, Lincolnshire Partnership NHS Foundation Trust, councillor governors Councillor Brenda Collier and Councillor Ingrid Sheard. They're the amendments, Leader. The Executive should also note the following in relation to the appointments to the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority in relation to substitute members. Councillor Gibson and Councillor Cheen to be nominated as substitute members for Councillor Matthews, and Councillor Catton and Councillor Kelly to be nominated as substitute members for Councillor Sheard. That's my report, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions on those nominations to outside bodies? I'll then move on to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Okie doke. Item 7 then, the Thedlethorpe Geological Disposal Facility Community Partnership. I now invite Andy Gutherson to speak to us about his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. You've got a report in front of you that sets out the history of Lincolnshire County Council's involvement in the project, sets out some key considerations and information which I think is pertinent to the decision to be made, and frames a professional recommendation for yourselves in the context of our current understanding of the position that could exist for the benefit of Lincolnshire in respect of hosting a geological disposal facility. The County Council were invited in 2021 to join the working group, which then transformed into the community partnership. And at that time, one of the objectives of the County Council was to better understand what the opportunities and the implications of having a geological disposal facility located in the county could actually be. I mentioned that in the context of posing 3 questions to you as an executive in reaching your decision this morning. Having now been involved in that process since 2021, Is the County Council significantly better or suitably informed to understand the implications and opportunities from being continue to be involved? Does the level of public opposition, which the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board heard from directly on last Thursday, render any further involvement pointless and meaningless for the County Council? Or could further work be justified to better understand and appreciate the implications, and could the County Council use that as a way of controlling some of the ongoing engagement to better inform the position? I'll return to those questions at the end of my presentation. I'll remind you all that the approach that's been adopted for the last 4 years is in full accordance with a government policy framework. So everything that NWS, the Community Partnership, the County Council have been doing is in the context of that set out policy position. That sets out significant constraints in terms of the timelines, the way information can be provided, but it also provides a clear direction and steer about how community involvement should be delivered. It also sets out parameters in terms of the opportunities for significant additional infrastructure, which are detailed in the report. It also makes provision for the ultimate test of public support that would always have been intended to formally test whether there was a willing community. And the two major criteria in the policy are the need to have a willing community and to also have a technically acceptable location and provision for the facility. Obviously, the real focus has very much become a matter of the willingness of the local community to continue to be involved in this process. The national policy context, though, relates to the fact that this country has been producing nuclear waste since the mid-1950s as part and parcel of the legacy of relying on nuclear power. And the country there has a commitment to find a way of actually a permanent solution to the storage of that waste. About 20 years ago, the Committee on Radioactive Waste Management recommended to the then government that long-term underground storage was the most suitable technology and solution, and that resulted in a white paper in 2008 recommending that the approach that this country should take was to find a suitable geological disposal facility site. That journey has been ongoing since that date. That white paper recommended or concluded that the technology was safe, it provided economic, social and environmental benefits for the host community, it was a cost-effective way of disposing of waste for the country, and it was an internationally recognised approach and therefore wasn't a technology that was just being tested in the UK. And in the time since then, I could identify that other countries have progressed. For example, Finland are about to open an underground disposal facility. In Sweden, plans have been approved. In France, they are developing a site under similar geology. Canada have, after 15 years, as detailed in the report, have now established a willing community. Switzerland have chosen a site, and Japan are in a process of seeking a willing community. So the process that the UK government have taken is similar to internationally recognised best practice. Having said that, fully understand and appreciate the uncertainty that the timeline associated with developing this project has created for a range of people. That timeline was always set out in the original submissions by Nuclear Waste Services to the County Council, and even with my background in planning and regeneration, working to a 15 to 20 year timescale is a difficult concept to get your head around, because development issues normally come up on a 1 to 2, 3 year sort of timescale. So it is an unusual scenario for any development proposal. The starting point for Nuclear Waste Services, though, is the desktop assessment of where there is suitable geology, and the geology off the east coast of Lincolnshire in terms of the Jurassic period clays is identified as being the most suitable geology, similar to those that are in other parts of the world, which I've already sort of referenced. As well as that geology, though, there would have been an engineered solution to actually the physical nature of the geological disposal facility, including a number of safeguards in terms of the protection of the nuclear waste, the security of the nuclear waste, and that would all be regulated by a range of bodies. And again, there is a generally accepted approach to risk management of this type of waste storage, as there are in terms of any other regulated matters. The surface site was originally identified to be on the former gas refinery site at Thedlethorpe. Over the period of time that has been considered, other competing interests had been brought forward, notably, as I'm sure members in the community will be aware of, issues to do with carbon capture and hydrogen production. So in essence, NWS have been, in popular termism, gazumped in terms of their ability to acquire the site, which resulted in them identifying a revised area of focus at the beginning of the year, which resulted in a movement of the attention to an inland area between Gayton, Marsh and Carlton, and on paper a larger site area. That was because they identified the area of focus as being larger. The ultimate site provision would have been the same sort of size as we'd been identified at Thedlethorpe, approximately 250 acres. In terms of the role of the community partnership, again, it's a policy requirement for that to exist. It must have a relevant principal local authority sat on it to be legally binding. Until earlier this year, it had both East Lindsey and the County Council in that role. East Lindsey withdrew earlier this year, leaving Lincolnshire County Council as the sole RPLA involved. If Lincolnshire County Council withdrew, then the project falls on the basis that there isn't an RPLA to actually sit on the community partnership. The community partnership's role is to assist with the dissemination of information and is involved on a basis of impartiality rather than being an advocate for the project. As OSMB heard last week, the chair of the community partnership did recognise some reservations and concerns about the way in which information had been made available to the community partnership to fulfil their role. The RPLA, just for completeness, can withdraw from the process at any time. So again, the policy that the NWS and the government work to provides for that. The community partnership had also always indicated that they felt that it was important that local community views were assessed before any final withdrawal took place. And I just mentioned that in the context of, in the relation to the information that is currently available, does that provide enough confidence to the executive that the level of public views and opinions on it has been properly tested? There is vociferous local objections, and again, OSMB heard from GoTech on Thursday, but there are also alternative survey information that is detailed in the report in relation to surveys that have been conducted through an organisation called Yonder. That indicates over the period of time that the proposal has been talked about and has been communicated in the community, there has been a move to a greater level of knowledge and understanding. Still a level of objection, but it does indicate there are competing views and different views. The report also provides quite a lot of detail in terms of economic benefits that could potentially be realised from this type of development. I'll summarise those in sort of 2 or 3 main areas. The direct construction benefits. There's an appended report from Midlands Engine which provides independent analysis of those potential benefits, and it identifies the possible positive impacts in relation to a community that suffers from high levels of deprivation, high levels of season employment, and impacts on the workforce. It also identifies the potential for significant additional infrastructure, potentially up to £1 billion. And again, at this moment in time, that work hadn't been refined to a point where there's absolute certainty of the direct impacts of that. So the questions I posed at the beginning, Chair, in relation to is further work appropriate, could actually get further clarity of whether those are realistic figures or whether it's likely to come to fruition. There is an option in the context of that for the County Council to make them non-negotiable positions on the basis of if that can't be demonstrated and proved, that could be a stage at which the withdrawal could take place. Don't underestimate the concerns that have been raised in relation to safety, process, timelines, impact and benefits. But the questions that I posed at the beginning, I think are just worth revisiting. Is the County Council in a better place to fully understand the implications and consequences of the GDF? My professional view is not yet. It's a question of whether it's appropriate to then, in terms of my third question, commission further work to get to that point. And in terms of the second question that I posed, does the level of public opposition that is currently known, does that provide enough confidence for the council to determine that in the context of public sentiment, public understanding, now is the time to withdraw? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Andy. Right, I now invite Councillor Roberts to give his report from the OSMB.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to be amongst you today to present the outcomes of the board's deliberations last week in relation to the consideration of this report. The board gave a thorough consideration to the report on Lincolnshire Council's ongoing involvement in the siting process of the Geological Disposable Facility, GDF, at Thedlethorpe. Following a detailed, wide-ranging debate, members unanimously endorsed a motion recommending that the council formally withdraws from the process. In doing so, the board rejected the report's original recommendation to continue engagement. This resolution followed oral evidence from the 4 invited contributors, some of them who are watching this debate live today: the chairman of the Community Partnership, the chief executive of Nuclear Waste Services, NWS, the chair of the local opposition group, GoTech, and the elected member for Salfleet and the Coates. The division encompassed the proposed site. The board's decision was shaped by several key concerns. Public engagement. Members expressed serious reservations about the adequacy of community engagement undertaken by NWS. Despite claims of local dialogue, the board found that communication had been inconsistent, fragmented and insufficient, enabling residents to form informed views. Officers acknowledged that transparency had been lacking. The members concluded that the process had failed to meet the acceptable standards of public consultation. Prolonged uncertainty. The extended timeline of the GDF programme, potentially spanned well into the late 2030s, was considered untenable. Members voiced concerns over the enduring burden of the uncertainty, placing on communities directly affected by this siting process. This prolonged ambiguity was seen as a source of distress and a barrier to constructive local planning. Capital costs, hold on, that's the wrong one. Erosion of public trust. The shift from original brownfield location at Thedlethorpe to the greenfield site inland was regarded as pivotal moment in that further eroded public confidence. Members observed that this change was not accompanied by adequate explanation or re-engagement, compounding local scepticism and intensifying opposition. Ethical and safety implications. The ethical dimension of storing high-level radioactive waste in Lincolnshire for timeframes extending up to 250,000 years was a subject of serious discussion. Members highlighted the irreversible nature of such a decision, the profound intergenerational impacts, and the absence of clear local consent as fundamental concerns that could not be reconciled for continued participation. Democratic accountability. In light of widespread and sustained public opposition demonstrated through local polling, consultation feedback and recent electoral outcomes, members concluded that any further involvement by the council would be inconsistent with its democratic responsibility. The weight of local sentiment was clear, and the board agreed that remaining in the siting process no longer served the interests of Lincolnshire communities. Accordingly, the board strongly recommended that the executive reflects these concerns in full and endorse the proposed withdrawal. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. And again, could you pass on my kind regards and thanks to the members of the OSMB for the work that they've done on this. I now open it up to the members of the executive to answer any questions or make statements on this. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Leader. This project is being pursued despite overwhelming public opposition. 93% of residents who engaged in local consultations expressed their disapproval. Local councils, including East Lindsey District Council, have withdrawn their support. And without a willing community, this project has no mandate. The economic impact cannot be ignored. Our coastal tourism economy, worth almost 250 million annually, supporting over 3,000 jobs, is at serious risk. Independent reports warn of a potential 40% drop in visitor numbers, with devastating consequences for local livelihoods. The residents have voiced frustration at the lack of transparency, meaningful engagement. Many feel unheard, uninformed, and increasingly distressed. It's a form of torture, they tell me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Are there anybody else? Councillor Catton.
Thank you, Chairman. Based on the comments and views put forward by the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board, I move that the Council immediately withdraws from the community partnership as set out in option 2 of the alternative considered on page 17.
Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Chairman. Since the previous Conservative administration welcomed the NWS into our county, there has been unprecedented levels of trauma for the residents in the communities that were involved. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure to second this.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. So for the executive, can I have a show of a vote in positive for that amendment? Those against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. So having listened to the discussions today and heard the report from the OSMB, I now intend to make a short statement regarding the geological disposable facility and the nuclear waste site partnership agreement. Firstly, to the people of Thedlethorpe and Gayton-le-Marsh, I would like to apologise. The previous Tory-led council has treated you appallingly, starting 4 years ago when they held secret talks with NWS about the preposterous idea of transporting nuclear waste from one side of the country to the other. There was only one possible reason for this: money. The fact that NWS paid this council money to enter into a partnership is nothing short of scandalous, and the few Tories that are left here should hang their heads in shame. But instead of doing that, what they have done is to continue to use this issue as a political football, caring not one iota for the feelings and concerns of the residents affected. They have raised a motion in the Scrutiny Committee last week, making it look like they were the ones that were going to cancel this partnership. That is utter nonsense. The Tories started this process, but Reform UK are the only ones that can stop it, and today we have. They used social media to suggest that you turned on this subject, which is complete nonsense. All they did was create more uncertainty, more confusion, and more misery for those poor residents that the Tories have already let down so terribly in the affected areas. They even got Miss Victoria Atkins, the MP, at it, twisting the truth to try and remain relevant, because she knows that all the divisions in her constituency have voted for Reform UK, and her time here is limited. Having said all that, I do really want a better politics. The cheap shots like this really are unnecessary. They're not helpful, and they're not good for the lives of our residents. But that clearly isn't what the Tories want. Or, as they call themselves now, the minibus party. Well, I suggest that you get in your minibus, drive to Thedlethorpe, Mablethorpe and Gayton-le-Marsh and start apologising for the distress and uncertainty and heartache that you have caused over the last 4 years. And I have absolutely no doubt that if the Tory party had continued as the council, they would have continued this agreement. They never announced any date to withdraw, despite what they say now. Their announcements before the election left the door open for MWS and to continue the uncertainty that that would bring. In contrast, during the election, I said that if I became the leader of the council, I would withdraw from this agreement on day one. And on day one, I enacted the emergency protocol to do just that. Today is the completion of that process, demonstrating that we at Reform UK, when we say something, we do it. I followed the legal framework to the letter for one simple reason. If I hadn't, we would have exposed ourselves to the possibility of an appeals process, and that would have continued this sorry saga for months on. I chose to do the right thing, the right way, to end this once and for all. But although I stood at the election to stop this partnership, and I have done so today, I do not want to take the credit for ending it. The credit must go to Travis Hesketh and Mike Crooks from the GoTech team, who campaigned for their neighbours and friends to stop NWS. They ran a fantastic campaign and succeeded here today. They are the heroes. You should be very proud of yourselves for what you have achieved. I hope that, as of today, the lives of those friends and neighbours that you worked so hard for will begin to get back to normality, clear from the dark shadow of NWS, because it is over. Thank you. So that is the end of the executive meeting. Thank you all for coming, and I think I might be going out to see some people out the front.